Hi, everyone. Thank you for making it to the last day, which is going to be the best day, with a great panel after lunch. Now you're energetic, ready to roll. And our amazing panel is going to tell us more about applications of XR and emerging tech in the world around us. Please help me welcome them with a round of applause. We have Adam Schlachter from Niantic. We have Eve Weston from Ixtalana. Matt Fleckenstein from the Walt Disney Company. And amazing moderator, Val Vacante from Denso.
Thank you, Nico. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Friday afternoon, like Nico said, we're going to talk about fun, and the goal is to have some fun here with this topic. So, as Nico said, I am Val Vacante, VP Solutions Innovation at Dentsu. I am honored that my role is all about living one step into the future. So I create new products, productize services, work with up-and-coming startups and massive companies, again, to kind of create the future. And we'll kick it off. Go ahead.
Matt Fleckenstein, currently at Disney, as it was announced. Also spent kind of the 4 years before that working at Microsoft, helping to launch HoloLens 2, and then Microsoft Mesh, kind of our virtual worlds platform.
Hi, I'm Eve Weston. I'm an XR storyteller. My background is in Hollywood-style television comedy. I learned about VR, which is an amazing platform for telling stories, and moved into that space. And now I write and create original XR stories and also help students, clients, brands, and companies figure out how to tell their stories in a spatial and immersive way using XR technology or sometimes just immersion in the real world.
Hi, I'm Adam Schlachter. I lead our marketing for brand partners and agencies at Niantic, helping to evangelize everything that we do in the world of augmented reality and how we're gamifying the world through our published apps and games and experiences and our platform, which hundreds and hundreds of developers and brands have built thousands of experiences on. And I've spent most of my career in the agency world and on the brand side, so oftentimes I was the one seeking out that next sort of level of innovation and evangelizing it internally, and now I get to go back into those places to educate them on where the world's going next and help them come along with us.
Great. Yeah, thanks again. And so really kicking it off, we're going to talk about how we live, work, move, play, and really how all of us are contributing to gamifying the world around us. And with that, we're talking about a connected culture. I think for a lot of us, I think people forget things like video games have been around for over 40 years, right? We think about things like collaborative play and multiplayer gaming. You're talking over 2 decades that's been happening. So it's a really exciting time for us. And have some great numbers here to showcase. And really just sort of broadly, there's $98 billion that's left on the table for brands and companies who don't provide simple experiences. Also, when we look at the gaming industry, and again, we're going to talk about sort of influence of play and gaming through the conversation today, but just wanted to highlight some of this massive growth happening in the gaming industry here. You're looking at 546 billion opportunity. And then also, more connected equals more spending. So really for brands and companies, product companies and the like, creating those really seamless and connected experiences are going to bring a little more joy and a little more play and a little more revenue to companies as well. So anything that the group here, you guys would like to add, looking at some of that data?
I think I'll just add a quick thing, which is I love these 3 stats, obviously because they're great big numbers and because they're growing fast. But I think more importantly, I love them because you can look at them each individually, but where I think the real power comes from is when you think about creating experiences that blend all of them, right? So, how do you kind of create simple, delightful experiences? How do you bring in gaming mechanics into those experiences? And how do you kind of connect them across kind of the different touch points that we have with digital in the physical world, which I'll talk a little bit more about.
Gaming can feel and sound trivial, right? Gaming and play, a little bit of silly, but these numbers show that there's really a lot to it. People want to be engaged and involved and active, and by giving them that opportunity, there's real value there. So it's more than just child's play. It's real business.
And it's definitely not child's play, right? It's everyone's people don't admit it, but everyone's a gamer. Right, we've all found ways to, whether it's in our downtime or with family and friends, with our kids, we've all found ways to stay entertained, stay informed, stay engaged in culture through some form of gaming. It's just transcended so many of the different experiences we have in the real world, as we're talking about. And one of the things that we see is, like, the world is a game board, right? And if you can start to give people reasons to get out and explore that world, you're gamifying their world. You're gamifying their lives. It might not be to go out and catch Pokemon, although we have lots and lots of people that do that every single day. But it might be for a whole host of other reasons. It might be something that's more akin to an actual retail experience that you don't think of as a game, but it's those sort of mechanics, those drivers of getting people out to discover things, to seek things out, to collect them, to share them, to badge them in a way that they don't think of in the same way as sitting down to actually play a game on a console or on a mobile phone or through a headset or anything else. But the ubiquity of those kind of experiences will just continue to persist and become part of the fabric of our lives more and more.
And I wouldn't call myself a gamer by any means, but I will say that when I couldn't sleep and woke up at 4:33 this morning, I did hop on the Wordle app and I crushed it today. So so it's all in all of us.
Thanks. And so we wanted to show those sort of big, broad numbers. And then here, just kind of drilling down a little more, no surprise, AWE, we're obviously talking about AR, VR, XR across the board, but also AI being a hot topic. It was getting a little bit of an eye chart to put so many data points on there, but just really wanted to highlight, obviously AI is booming, and as we all know, AI is not new. It's been in gameplay, it's been in different experiences for a long time. We're just on a new hype cycle of AI at the moment, but incredible growth there if you look at those numbers. Also, location-based entertainment. So I know Matt has some bits he's going to talk about there later, but again, incredible growth. We had sort of a slump during COVID when you were looking at things like arcades or amusement parks and the like, but the numbers going up. And then lastly, of course, augmenting our world. So seeing incredible growth as it pertains specifically to AR and gameplay there. Anything you guys would like to chime in on there?
I'll just add one more quick comment, which is I also think this is a great example of each of the individual stats are interesting, but when you think about the convergence of AI and location-based entertainment and kind of augmenting our world, I think that's where it gets really fun and exciting.
Cool. So now what we're going to do is each of us, I think it's really important as we go out in the world and we come to incredible conferences like AWE to really showcase real-world examples and what people are doing in the marketplace to get inspired, get ideas, and again, see those real-world examples. So each of us will kind of go through a couple minutes on what we've been up to and then have a chat about it. As I mentioned, I'm at Dentsu, and we are really called a network designed for what's next. We are a global company, over 65,000 people, everything from media to CXM to creative work. And you can see here's a couple of snippets here of our work across metaverse, across AR, VR, and AI, hitting those key beats that we just talked about there. And now I'm going to play a little sizzle here, so if you guys want to get up and dance, feel free. We got some beats in here today. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And so really wanted to put a number of examples, as you saw in there, really playful, gamified nature with some of the emerging tech, right? You saw some of the AI examples with the Kroger bot. You saw the box office AI with Dentsu and Disney had created. And then, of course, a plethora of sort of location-based AR experiences. We've actually, in some of those, you probably recognize the tech in there.
I recognize a few of them, for sure.
Great. And what's great is all that sort of collection hits across our network, right? So we have things like Dentsu Shop, where we're able to create that kind of everything from on-pack play to drive to retail plays you talked about, Adam. And then things like Dentsu Gaming. So there were some examples in there of like Benetton. So looking at different retail brands and bringing that bit of play in there as well. I'll turn it over to Matt now.
Awesome, thank you. So, real fast, just in terms of, I talked a little bit about being at Disney, I'm really focused on next generation storytelling there, which is how do you tie together physical experiences with digital experiences and ultimately with virtual experiences. And so, you can envision someone visiting a park, going to Galaxy's Edge, right, riding on the ride and being part of that. Only to come home after their wonderful trip, right, and get some behind-the-scenes content for Mandalorian, right? And maybe they end up being one of the first 10,000 people to complete Mandalorian Season 3 in terms of watching it. And so you can imagine them getting, an invitation to go into a virtual world where they get access to some special experiences that really highlight how Mandalorian was made and kind of the behind the scenes of all things Mandalorian. And so, Disney excels at storytelling, and I think a large part of kind of what the next generation is going to be is how do you tell stories across each of these different canvases, and then ultimately how do you string them together? And I know Eve will pick up kind of on some of those topics as well. If you think about kind of the stats, right, there's two things that just really kind of drive a lot and have influenced a lot of my thinking over the last several years. The first of these, and I think this was said by Adam, right, is that really every generation engages with games. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's purely staggering. And when I wear my Disney hat, I can't help but realize that, games are really the #1 form of entertainment now among Gen Alpha. And you can see how kind of things have changed, obviously, over time. But I think the significance is even kind of boomers, it's still a big deal for boomers as well. And so it really is something for everyone when we talk about it. Similar to the clip we just saw, I wanted to highlight a few experiences, and I threw them together into kind of a similar kind of flashy collage type video. Some of these incorporate some things from Disney in those. A lot of the stuff that we're doing in next generation storytelling we haven't really talked about publicly yet, so there's not too much I can disclose. But I mentioned spending time at Microsoft as well, and so I've got a blend of kind of some of the things we're doing at Disney coupled together with some of the Microsoft experiences. But the real purpose of this is to just showcase these are all things that I've personally been involved in just in the last couple of years, and you'll see the breadth of them, I think, which is always the most interesting aspect. Oops, I apologize, I forgot I moved my slide around. Sorry, the whole point of this is to really say, look, gaming is everywhere, and the aspects of gaming and gaming mechanics are really infiltrating kind of almost every industry that we have. If you think about your traditional kind of technology adoption curve, you've got the traditional gaming companies, you've got, kind of your multi-massive online player games, which have been around for a while, and now, kind of really everyone who's a gamer has really touched those games. You've got the casual games which have emerged. You've got kind of the new up-and-coming generation of kind of gaming platforms, the Roblox, the Minecrafts, the ones that kind of, we can't talk to our kids anymore because they're too busy playing those types of games, right? And so you've got all of that, which has really helped to build out these capabilities that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. But now we're seeing it extend more and more into other industries. So you see things like loyalty programs, right? And kind of how can you embed kind of things like leveling up and points and XP into loyalty programs, but also how can you start to unlock experiences? For example, they could be physical experiences in Starbucks, for example. You can win an actual trip to South America to go to a coffee plantation. You can win virtual experiences. You can also kind of get access to exclusive coffee-related NFTs. And then, of course, you see all of the brands and the retailers kind of not just doing branding anymore, but really starting to kind of bring those experiences to life. You go back even just a couple of years ago, Pepsi kind of created, very unique specialized cans that celebrated all of the major players in the Premier Soccer League. When you took it home and scanned your QR code, you could have those players literally playing a soccer game on your tabletop. And then, of course, you see some new and emerging spaces. Companies such as Artifact, which are the founders of Instagram, really coming in and kind of creating, kind of gamifying kind of content consumption. The more content you read, the more points you earn, those types of things. And then, there's also, I see the logo got dropped off of here, but there's also, companies like Virtual Therapeutics, which are really focused on, mental fitness and building mental fitness platforms for people and bringing these gaming elements to really motivate you every day to come in and kind of participate in that and work on and improve your mental fitness, being able to kind of earn recognition and rewards as you go along. So another quick kind of video here that I had promised a moment ago. And so look, the reality is it's far from game over, right? The game is really just getting started here. And if you think about kind of taking that interactive kind of immersive experiences, you can bring them to kind of how we work, how we play, and how we learn. And I think, Eve is going to kind of build on that and talk a little bit more about how it comes into storytelling.
Thanks for that. Yeah, that's such a great introduction to what I'm going to talk about, and I love that this panel covers gamification and play in so many different areas. And so, a couple of the areas that I'm going to touch on include museums, work life, and even dating. And so, a project that I got to do recently that was really exciting was the Bruce Lee Foundation approached me as in my creative directing partnership, Lola Tango, and they had a problem they needed to solve, which was how do they share Bruce Lee's library with the world? He was a really active reader, active not just in that he read many books, but that he also read them while doing stuff, like stretching or cooking. And I love the idea of applying that into our exhibit concept. So we thought about, how can we make that experience of coming to a museum more engaging, more interactive and more fun. Seeing books in a glass case might be informative, but doesn't necessarily grab your attention. Even scrolling through digital scans on an iPad is something that you could do at home. And so how do we activate that experience? And so we created, there's a slide. How do we get to that slide?
I think Adams was there.
Okay.
Oh, do you want to go next? We'll go forward and then back.
Go forward, yeah.
Turn this into a game. Okay, so here we are. There's some photos of the exhibit. Be Water, my friend, based on his Be Water philosophy. And so we said to ourselves, how can we bring that to life? And so we created these 3 activation hotspots that represented mind, body, and spirit. And when you step onto each one of those let's call them puddles of water, one of the quotes that Bruce Lee underlined in his reading sort of rises to the surface and allows you to focus on what that is saying to you. And then your movement activates materials on the screen in front of you that might be his writings in the margin that relate to that quote, or photos, video, or artifacts from his life that show how he applied that philosophy in his real life. And so this felt like it really made the experience more active and also give the viewer participant the opportunity to really sit with these ideas. Exploring a whole library can be overwhelming, and here it breaks it down to one quote at a time that you can sort of think about and consider how it applies to your own life. And also that interactivity element has been proven to be really valuable, kinesthetic learning, in helping people retain information. So actually a paper of mine was recently published in Harvard Egyptological Studies on how storytelling, humor, and interactivity can really be beneficial in pedagogy. So I love that we were able to incorporate that interactivity into this museum exhibit. Let's see, and then the other slide I have here speaks to my work. So like I mentioned, I was a television comedy writer before moving into XR, and I love this idea of bringing the viewer into the story world. And so one of the first projects I did was the first 360 virtual reality sitcom, The Biz Nest. And then I love that notion, and not that many people had headsets at the time, and I wanted to think about what the other ways were of engaging people into a story world. And so, we had Zoom at our fingertips, right? So how can we use that tool? I mean, I love what you said earlier about these different canvases that we have and how can we tell stories across different canvases, right? So television is one canvas, VR is another, Zoom is yet another, and there continue to be more that are activated by technology. So how can we rethink stories and make them the most suitable for that platform and get the most value out of them? I actually have a book on Amazon that explores that, 10 Kick-Ass Careers for Storytellers, right? And it explores like different areas, including escape rooms and video games and interactive television, that we can tell stories in. So the idea here was to bring the audience together with the cast, with the characters from the show, all on the same screen, right? When you're watching television, that screen is over there and you're on the couch. But here you are showing up on the same screen as the characters in your show, and you get to actually have conversations with them and interact with them and be a part of that story, influence their decisions, get reactions from them. So I really love that as sort of a prototype for an entertainment show, but it also served as an example of what's possible in other areas of our life. And so one fun thing that came out of it is during the show, there would be these coffee breaks. The premise of the show is that it's a workplace comedy that takes place in a co-working space where you're one of the members, right? So, the regular characters in the show are members of this co-working space, and when you log on, you are a day pass holder. But you have a relationship with these other characters, and so one of the things we instituted in this performance was a coffee break where you were paired one-on-one with another audience member, and you would get to know them. So it's actually an opportunity to meet other people. So this gets back to that idea of introducing gamification and play in our everyday lives. Like a little bit of networking suddenly becomes like a sitcom game. And we can even apply that to dating, right? Like if you go on a first date with someone, if the date doesn't go well, it's really a bummer, like you didn't have any fun. If you manage to go on a mini date in the middle of a live interactive sitcom, at the end of the day, like you had a good entertainment experience whether or not the date went well. And think about it, you could plug in 2 or 3 of them during the course of the show. So, I think for a lot of people who are just like, oh my God, am I really gonna go on another date? Here's a way to make it more enjoyable, that you feel like you got some play and some fun out of it. The other application that came out of this that I really enjoyed is sort of corporate in nature. If you ever worked for a company or institution, there are a lot of meetings, a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of in-person meetings. You go to, these sort of all-hands conferences where the company has a lot of information to convey to a lot of people, and it can very easily be very dry. Sometimes I may not be able to send a comedy writer in to rewrite every single presentation, but one thing I did for one of our clients is weave in character-driven experiences. So create these characters who showed up at the offsite and popped up throughout. And so people were a little bit, had more reason to be engaged because they sort of never knew when the story was going to be continuing and wanted to follow along. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth in those kinds of areas. And we were talking earlier about how we have historically siloed fun and play and work and entertainment and socializing, and the lines are blurring now, which is really exciting, and we have technology that allows us to blur those lines. So I say, let's blur them. Why not add some fun into our work life? And the added benefits is that it actually helps us retain the information better. We're more engaged, and we remember it better. So, yeah, I think now it's time to hear from Adam.
I think that's fascinating to think about immersing yourself in these kind of storylines and like what technology enables us to do in ways that most people never really imagine. But it's akin to it's choose your own adventure. It's going to a theme park, but actually engaging in more than a ride. It's going from playing a card game or a board game to playing a game in the real world. And technology is what enables it all, but it's not the technology itself that we should be obsessed with. It's the experience, and that's what I love what we do at Niantic. I love everything that we're all talking about up here, and I'll share a little bit more about that. Let me just back up. So, by show of hands, how many people have played Pokemon Go? Yes, that was not surprising. By show of hands, how many people have played Peridot? Oh, wow, all right. I'm feeling it. For all of you that didn't put your hands up, you should download it and play because it's one of our latest real-world AR games. I guess you call it a game. It's a virtual pet simulator, like an AR Tamagotchi. And it's sort of the latest manifestation of the technology that we're building as an AR company who makes games and makes these real-world experiences to kind of demonstrate how all this technology can come together to create something that's more lifelike, that's more in the moment, that augments the world around you to make reality better. Right? At the end of the day, technology for technology's sake doesn't create those habits, doesn't create long-lasting relationships. It doesn't create value. It could be gimmicky. It could be obsolete overnight. It could be something that doesn't make a real lasting impact. 7 years ago when Pokemon Go launched, it was a phenomenon. Like, right? No, we all remember seeing people running through a park or dashing across the street to catch something or to do something you couldn't even imagine was happening. But it was happening for so many people simultaneously, all at once, all around them, because of the technology that we've developed. And as we've continued to iterate on that game and publish other games and other titles and other experiences, and improve our Lightship platform that powers all of that and unlock it for other brands and agencies and folks to build on top of, build their own experiences, we've realized that giving people access to more localized experiences, more immersive visual experiences, more shared experiences create what we see as real world experiences. Last year when everyone was talking about the metaverse, we would take it as a sort of cue to talk about the real world metaverse, which is the world around us. And that technology helps create a layer of enablement and unlocks these kind of magical experiences that we all have come to enjoy and love. And I think that we're all looking forward to seeing what's next. So thus far, over the last few years of developing a lot of these games and experiences, we've gotten people to walk millions and millions and millions of miles, right? We inspire movement every day for tens of millions of people. You create good habits, right? Getting people out and exploring the world together is our mission. And if we can do that through play, and we can do that through immersive, educational, entertaining experiences, to us, like, it's mission accomplished. And the more that you can do that, and again, put it in people's hands to create their own experiences, to create that sort of ecosystem, and sort of augment the world, the better it can be, because it's not one size fits all. Market to market, it's different. Generation to generation, it's different. But if we can find the sort of common things that sort of compel people to get out and explore and get out and play, we think we can help improve that world. So, some of the GIFs that you're seeing up on the screen are representations of, there's Peridot, which I'll show you a little bit more about in a moment. There's a mini game that was created with the PGA to kind of educate kids on the mechanics of golf and teach them about the sport that so many of them might not know how to play or might not have access to play, but you could talking about turning any surface into an interactive experience. Well, any surface can be a canvas for AR, and therefore can be a canvas for a game. So if we had enough surface area right here, we could turn this whole carpet into a putting green, and everyone can learn like the mechanics of how to putt. And that was something we worked with the PGA Junior League to develop using our Lightship platform. The spinning basketball up top is a teaser for NBA All World, a game that we launched earlier this year in conjunction with the league. That's not meant to be a simulation. It's meant to be more of a lifestyle game. Again, like get people out and exploring, pay off on collector culture, sneaker drops, the sort of culture of basketball. Because we already know there's tons of great simulation games out there that people can play on a console, but what if you got them out and onto a physical court to run into their favorite player and challenge them to a game virtually, right? Could that enhance their experience? Could that get them out discovering new experiences in new cities, new teams, new players, et cetera? So there's all these different mechanics that we're picking up from game to game, experience to experience, and trying to dream up what can come next. And part of what's next is what we've launched with Peridot just about a month ago. They're so adorable, right? And they're all one of one. They're all genetically unique, right? So what's really cool about Peridot is it's a culmination of all these incredibly cutting-edge features of our Lightship platform that takes into account localization and real-time mapping and understanding the environment around you, semantic segmentation to understand the differences between surfaces and walls and sky and the ground, grass versus concrete, that can enable different functions, different things to happen. So it knows you're walking in a park versus walking through the halls of AWE, and maybe different things will be unlocked as a result. Occlusion, so that way it knows to walk around a tree, not through it, unless maybe there's a path through it. And it gets smarter and it learns as it grows and it evolves, and it's an activity-based game, much like raising a virtual pet or a Tamagotchi, but getting you out and exploring and maybe connecting with people in the real world, right? Creating community, creating cohorts and groups of people that will meet up. And we've seen that obviously over the last few years with Pokemon Go and a lot of the community days and live events that we put on, and our Go Fest event, which this summer is going to be coming to New York, London, and Osaka. Either simultaneously or just like back to back in August. I might be getting my dates mixed up, but we get tens and tens of thousands of people together all at once in the same place, connecting and meeting up and having these sort of serendipitous moments, playing together and enjoying and experiencing something together in the real world that we've gamified for them and with them. And when we build these kind of experiences, we think of them as forever franchises. Because in our mind, if we all enjoy playing them and we could pass that on to someone else, maybe it's our kids, maybe it's our friends, maybe it's people that we meet through these meetups, the experience just persists and can live on and on and on and continue to evolve in lots of new ways. And while something like Peridot is available now for your phone, everything in the expo is about glasses, right? So this game was developed for a world that we're going to be living in that will be eyes up, not eyes down. But we know that's not a world we're living in right now, at least not today, at scale and at mass. So we wanted to get it out there to get people experiencing it and comfortable with it as it could exist for now, and as it evolves and as it moves to be something more sort of ambient, persistent, and hands-free. You can imagine where it goes. And it's a 100% AR activity-based experience. One other thing I wanted to show you, if you haven't been to our Niantic Lounge, which is around the corner from here, we debuted an experience called Wool, which it's super, super cool. I'll show you a quick video on it that will tease it and make you want to run out and check it out, which you should after this. But it's our first mixed reality, AI-powered mixed reality experience. Let me just show you. So if you haven't met Wool, you have to. And what's super cool about it, beyond it being this AI-powered, hyper-realistic avatar that's having a conversation with you, and very unique conversations based on what you ask it will come back with very unique responses. It's an experience that's meant to educate you on the history and sort of nature of the redwood forest. So it's a bit of an educational experience that's about conservation and preservation and ecology and everything we need to do to be better about taking care of the world around us so we can have these real-world augmented experiences. But it's built for a multi-platform set of consumption. So it's on the MetaQuest Pro, but you could also experience it through a web browser and have more of a lighter touch version, which I was sharing with Val last night because we didn't have the headsets running. But we wanted to make it as accessible as possible. You could also do it on a desktop and have a web-based version there as well through the browser. And it's built on our 8th Wall platform in conjunction with the folks from InWorld, from the avatar standpoint, from Liquid City, from the sort of augmented browser experience. But these kind of things we think are really kind of like the tip of the iceberg of where we're going and what's possible for people to build on this technology and these platforms, again, to enhance the world around us. So you can imagine what it does for travel and tourism, what it does at retail, the potential for it in education, in live events. And these are all places that we've been experimenting with for years and years and years. And we've been fortunate to have a lot of success in different ways, and they've just all been great experiments and proof of concepts for what's coming. And I think we're thankful to be in a position where it's never ending. We're always continuing to evolve. We're always continuing to build towards what's next, and we want to make that accessible for everyone to build with us. And if we do that, certainly it could be as big and as successful as anything else that we've all experienced. And you can imagine what going to a theme park will be like, and I was just in Disneyland with my 10-year-old, and oh my God, we had the most incredible immersive time in Star Wars. And it was not just a ride, it was an experience, and it was gamified, and all of this use of technology really brought it to life in a way that you wouldn't have got if you just literally got on and off a ride, right? But Disney does such a fantastic job that it's never going to be just that. But you could also see how much better and how much more incredible it'll get with the use of these kind of technologies, and how it can be personalized, how it can be more dynamic, and how it can be more long-lasting.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, like I say, we wanted to show these real-world examples, although augmented, although enhanced with technology. Definitely wanted to share kind of what this group is creating, learning from, and putting out in the world. But now we're going to take the conversation really about evolving experiences. So I think in a lot of the examples here, you saw what brands can do and what companies can do, but we really just wanted to have a little bit of a dialogue and talk further about that. One of the examples we actually had up there, our team used the 8th Wall platform for exactly what you said, right? Having that web AR experience. And for us, working with so many brands, it's so important, again, on the accessibility, just super simple, no app, from this thing here, making it easy, and bringing a little bit of play near store, in store, upon arrival. So we are definitely loving Eighth Wall as well as Lightship too.
No, we appreciate it. And we acquired the Eighth Wall brand a little over a year ago, and since we've incorporated them into the rest of Niantic and amongst the Lightship platform, a lot of those features on Lightship about localization, about segmentation, like all of that now can be experienced on WebAR as well as through our ARDK, which is a bit more app-based. So the accessibility is huge because you could access WebAR on something like 3.5 billion smartphones and smart devices around the world. So there's no barrier to entry when it comes to that. We want to make it as easy as possible, whether it's snapping a QR code, honing in on an image target, or just going to a URL. And that makes it infinitely more accessible, more shareable, and hopefully more enjoyable because you can get to the experience faster. And now with things like our visual positioning system, we can anchor content in really specific places. So it could be a very hyper-localized experience. So talking about retail, right, or theme parks, you can imagine the kind of things that you can put out for people to discover, whether you're prompting them to do it, maybe you're putting them on a scavenger hunt of some sort, maybe you're gamifying that experience, right? Or you're trying to take them on some sort of an interactive tour. That's so much more easy to do when you don't have to download an app, you don't have to have super fast connectivity and deal with latency issues all the time. Sometimes it's necessary, and something like Peridot, you do need that. And something like Lol, you do need that. But that's today. These things are brand new, and as the technology improves, the hardware improves, the network connectivity improves, it's just going to get more seamless, and it's just going to get that much better.
Well, and I love that. And one of the things that's really exciting, I don't know if you saw what was being announced about Disney. It's actually perfect timing for our conversation today. So, when you think about Disney and you think about, as you touched on, having that in-park experience, right? Having that in-park experience, or doing things like Galaxy's Edge, whether it's from your VR device at your house, or, as Matt said, watching Mandalorian and the like on TV. But Disney's taking it to another level now with their recent announcement with Merge. So you want to share a little about that?
Yeah, so look, there's again, unfortunately, a lot that I can't talk about, but what I will say on this front is, for those of you not familiar, they've been very focused, Merge has been very focused on, really building experiences that are kind of tactile in nature, and kind of really saying, hey, look, how can we add more sensual experiences and leverage sensual AI to kind of bring these experiences to life? And so, they've got a device that you can take into your living room, and you can kind of recreate kind of these interactive experiences kind of there on your tabletop. And you can also kind of interact with content with your friends and other people. So you can, kind of do stuff together. You can high five. You can kind of, fist pump and all of that stuff right from your living room. Extending kind of that TV experience from the screen that's on your wall, right, to kind of something that you can actually actively engage in your living room with others, friends, family, those types of things. So, you get a chance to kind of watch the new season of Mandalorian, or you get a chance to kind of watch your favorite Disney movie with people, family that's kind of all over the place, right, and to kind of experience it beyond just the screen. So I think it's a great example of kind of where this is going, where it's, hey, more and more of these technologies are converging to make kind of these experiences, I think, really powerful.
And personally, I can't wait to try it. There's no glove or anything like that needed. So very
no headset,
simple.
No glove. Exactly. It brings a lot of those capabilities to life with just a simple device that you can put onto your tabletop, right?
And it looks nice too.
Yeah, it does.
Well, and speaking of kind of like haptics and senses and touch, some of the things that we've been experimenting with from a Dentsu perspective is, if you all may have seen, it was in the video, but it's called Hugtics. So instead of haptics, right? Instead of haptics, we created experimental prototype called HugTix, and it's all about giving a virtual hugs. You actually put on a device. You can, it'll remember it. So just like you hug your mom or your son or your child, it'll actually remember that. And that was a little bit of exploration, again, in the senses, because as Matt said, like all these things are sort of merging together. Another one that we did in terms of AI and senses was an experience where you could actually pick a scent, smell it, and then it would, and it had some like AI base behind it and would produce a visual image. So similar to Peridot, it would produce that kind of experience. And so for us, do all the things go to market? No, but that's how you learn, right? And you kind of like building on play. You have that play, you learn about it, and then have the lens of sort of what does it mean to brands? And Eve, like, would love to hear about, you took like a museum experience and sort of made it immersive and through the Bruce Lee Foundation. So talk about that for a moment.
Is there a particular angle you're curious to hear more about in the process, or?
Just a little like how people interacted with it, Would love to know more about that.
It was really exciting to see the visitors come into the museum and get to be a part of the experience. I think one thing that speaks to, and I love that this is a very sort of complementary set of people, and that our work works together very nicely. They talked a lot about the tools and the hardware that we can use to support these experiences, and I kind of also want to talk about the mental tools that we use to figure out how to use the hardware and the products that we have. And so, I think it's very easy to get excited about wanting to use VR or wanting to use haptics or wanting to use HugTix in your storytelling, and sometimes it can be tempting to just rush into it. And so one of the things I try to encourage clients and individuals to do is like step back and ask yourself, why you're using this technology and how you can use it to support your goals, right? So what do you want your viewer participant to feel? What do you want them to take away from the experience? And so part of what I've developed is an immersive story experience development tool set to help people think through the process and make sure that the experience they create accomplishes all the things that it's going to. And so it's really nice because this works in partnership with the hardware. And so there are several parts to it, but the four sort of new ideas that I'm introducing as part of this tool set is a story anchor, which speaks to the story of the experience, an experience summary, which talks about the actual experience of the viewer participant as they go through this experience, the pillars of game, which outline, does it have all the things to make it a game, and if so, what are they? And it's really interesting because game doesn't have to be what we often traditionally think of. Like if you actually look at, I really like Jane McGonigal's definition of game, and that doesn't require any sort of point system or win-loss condition, right? There are these other elements, these four pillars, that can define a game and let us sort of check if we actually are succeeding in creating the game engagement that we want to. And then the fourth thing is what I call the experiential viewpoint expression, which is drawn from the taxonomy of immersive point of view, or the taxonomy of experience, which I authored and originally presented at AWE in 2019, and which has since been published in the Handbook of Research on the Global Impacts and Roles of Immersive Media. But if you don't want to buy the very expensive, thick book, you can just go look at the AWE talks from a couple of years ago. And essentially that gives us a language for thinking and talking about points of view in immersive. We've already had language to talk about narrative point of view for second and third person, and visual point of view also for second and third person. But with XR, we have these additional abilities to potentially interact with the story or scene, right? And so how do we denote what level of interactivity we have? And we also may have an ability to impact how we experience the thing. If this were a virtual world, am I experiencing this moment right now as myself, or can I also choose to experience it as one of you, or just hovering above in the area? So we didn't have a language for that. So these four tools in combination with the other tools of story development that we've had for years, world building and character development, if we kind of put ourselves through the paces and work our idea through these processes, then it sort of serves as a check to make sure that we really are making the most of these amazing technologies, this amazing hardware, and platforms that these other companies are providing us with. So I love that idea that this all works together, and whenever I can work with somebody somebody to help them make sure that their story experience is achieving all the things they want it to, I find that really satisfying.
Cool. Well, I know we're almost out of time here. I want to make sure we cover off the big question. Everybody always asks, what's next? What is next? And so would love to kind of just quickly go down the line here so we can make sure we have some Q&A with you all here. So, yeah, when we think about what's next, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, look, we talked a lot about it, right, in terms of, look, how can you create kind of these immersive, interactive, kind of, sensory kind of experiences? And I think that's definitely going to be a big part of it. But I think the biggest part, and the part that makes me most excited, and we hinted at this as well, I think it's just this stuff's going to be more and more accessible, right? And kind of we'll all get to participate in it. And I think that's kind of what I look forward to the most, right? As we continue to make progress on standards and standardization and, build once and deploy across many platforms, I think it'll create unique opportunities for us all to be a part of it. And I think that's when the community aspect really gets involved and this becomes a lot of fun.
Cool. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just to build on that, and you saw it with the wall example, right? Like, we know not everyone's going to walk around with a heads-up display on their face probably anytime soon, despite what we've all been looking at this week and what's going to be announced next week, we all think. But it's coming. Like, there will be a world one day where we are living more hands-free and untethered, and these experiences are really just all around us. I don't know when, but that's what we're working towards. But until now, or rather until then, for now, having more shared AR experiences or immersive experiences. We announced yesterday our shared AR features on our platform, multiplayer features for a lot of these web AR-based games that we've created, where we don't all have to be independently staring at our phones, but we can connect together and actually play together. Like, that changes the experience, and I think we're going to start to see that more and more. And again, to the point of accessibility, it makes it infinitely more accessible, because I don't just have to go tell someone about it. I could show them, and they can participate, they can engage with me. And if you're a brand who's investing in that to find ways for people to spend more time with your brand, with your product, to make connected products and packaging that enable those experiences, we're starting to see more interest in that regard as well. In particular, because younger generations kind of expect it. Like, my kids know that if they scan something, something's going to happen, or something should happen. Not all the time, but like, that's the expectation. We were talking about that last night with, with Lego, and how early they were. A lot of the toy companies were super early with this, because they know that they can get people to spend more time with the product. And if they spend more time with the product, they'll spend more time with the brand. They'll be a customer for life. They'll be an evangelist, an advocate for it. And whenever something new happens, they'll sort of be first in line to participate in it. And like, that is just going to continue to happen more and more. These worlds are going to continue to blend and blur. And that can be really exciting if it's done well. And if it's done well, responsibly, but also if it's done in a way that the barriers to entry are really low for people to be able to access it and experience it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think one of the things I need to make T-shirts of, or have it printed on books or what have you, but I truly believe that if you're designing for kids now, you're already designing for the future, because particularly in the toy industry and creating, and by the way, you were totally spot on. Like, play is not digital play, it's not physical, it's just play, and that's why kids expect and live in these mixed and merged worlds. And so it's really incredible. And then in terms of accessibility, similar to everybody here, I think it's really important when you think about accessibility. It's everything from being able to go across all people and abilities, but also thinking about even things like cost, right? So having a low barrier. So Adam, what you were talking about is like, you don't need the $400 headset. You can have a joyful experience here. Or here from right. the laptop, right? So, and we've done some of that actually with our Dentsu Next Space that we had in there with Microsoft and LinkedIn from the get-go. It was designing with everybody in mind. So, I know we are at time, so just wanted to say thank you to everyone, and we can open it up for Q&A.
question is about latency. How are you managing it? And when it's not manageable, how are you telling us, the developers, what to expect? You get
It's a great question. One that we could probably talk about outside. But yeah, latency is a big thing, and we work with all the major telcos to ensure, in particular at like live events, that you've got the right network capacity. You don't want to create an environment where people can't experience the thing that you're bringing them there to experience, and it's something you have to plan for. But yeah, to that end, I think you're making sure that we've got the right education for our developer partners and our brand partners, so they understand like the feasibility, like the requirements to make something that should be or could be more accessible than not, and wouldn't have to have too many dependencies. It's critical, but it's something that I think will increasingly continue to improve by leaps and bounds. Just thinking about how quickly 5G has blanketed the world, even though it took about 10 years, and I used to work on that, so I remember how long it took. But thinking about what it took to get from there to from where we were to where we are now, and how much technology has improved, I think we're just going to continue to exponentially improve in those spaces.
I think with all new technology, right, design for forgiveness. Know that you're going to run into latency issues, and design for forgiveness.
Agree with both of those, and that's actually for us when we're working with a brand. It's all about, and we're doing something new. It's really setting that expectation. Like everybody wants it to be beautiful out of the box, but it's really having that conversation. Like, hey, there's going to be bumps in the road, and it's technology, so things are always going to shift, and they're not going to be perfect. And really having those honest conversations. Like, are you comfortable with that brand? Before you dive in. Any last questions? We'll do one last question there, and then we'll be available outside to carry on the conversation. But go ahead, please.
So actually, it's like when it comes to promotion and marketing, it's basically a combination of like the original IP or brands, and also the virtual reality technology. So what do you think is the actual essence? Like, is the IP the brand or the technology itself? And the second question would be I think everybody is trying to make it more easy to access. But I think the excitement and the bar to get to use the technology can be some excitement for people to engage in the experience and to know the brand. So what do you think? Is it a barrier, or people will make it easier and less I don't know. Sorry about that. Just two questions. Is that clear enough?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in terms of like technology, the brand, and the IP, I think it goes back to, what are you wanting to learn? Is there a particular problem, that technology will solve? Is it pure, hey, exploration? We want to get our hands dirty. We want to experiment with, a new experience. We're not sure where it's going to go, but we going in, kind of your goal is learning versus, if you have a specific problem to solve. Oftentimes what I've seen is people may say, well, VR may solve it or AR may solve it. And then in the end, when you look at the problem, it may be something completely different.
And I think the IP issue comes down, every company's got to work through that themselves. At Disney, obviously, right, the entire company is based off of IP, whether it's your Marvel characters or your Star Wars characters or Pixar. And so you make decisions to say, hey, how open do I want something to be? Do I want to allow users to come in and kind of modify kind of a character of mine or not? Or do I want to close that part of the ecosystem? And so I think that's just stuff that you have to think through and work through depending on the type of company you are.
I would agree with that. I think it also depends where you're coming from, right, on where the value is for you. There's definitely a lot of value in IP, but the hardware and technology comes from a different angle. So a little bit, it depends where you are. And just to speak to your mention of marketing, I'll also say that the first searchable database of immersive narrative content is findable online at thelook.club. So if you're curious to see what's out there, keep tabs on what's coming next, that might be something to check out, and also a place to find inspiration.
Well, thank you all so much for coming out, for joining us, participating in the conversation. Great questions. Like I said, we will all be outside. If you want to have a chat, ask more questions, and also please link in with us, connect with us. We'll continue the conversation, in the virtual world, as we should at AWE, right? Thank you so much.